Hello everyone. I just wanted to take a few minutes and go over some of the tips and tools and resources for moving from control to collaboration. And I wanted to kind of touch on kind of the personal case study that I've been using about my job at First Orion and how we use some of the things that are mentioned in the textbook. And then finally, I wanted to go over this week's assignment with you. So the pages that you'll need to look at for the tips and the tools are on page 79 through 90. And these are just some of the takeaways that I want you to pay particular attention to. First, they talk about being the lone genius. Don't be the only person in the room who thinks that you know everything. Oftentimes, control comes from the people who feel like that they're the only ones with expertise, and they want to make sure either that it stays that way or that, everyone just listens to them. So don't be the lone genius. Realize that there are other people around you who also have some valuable things to contribute. Language matters. Box 3.1 and 3.2 in this section talks about how we say things and what we really mean when we say them. For example, when somebody says it's really important to do this correctly, what they may be thinking is, you're going to do it my way. Or I don't like to repeat myself. Okay, you should have been listening to it the way that I want you to. I don't want to micromanage you, but, well, I'm going to micromanage you. That's what they're really saying. So language is very important, and the way that we say things and the choices of words that we choose really can make a difference. And so box 3.1 and 3.2 kind of contrast some of the different ways that we use language to create meaning within people of either collaboration or control. Because as we know from communication courses, words have no meaning until we give them meaning. And so we can shape how people see control, and we can see how people shape collaboration just based on the language choices that we make. Third, know your role. This means that in the collaboration process, which your book, the book kind of goes into more detail about, excuse me, I'm so sorry, you need to know your role. There are task roles, there are social roles, there are leadership roles, and you kind of need to know where you fall in those, because all of those roles are very important. So please review those and just kind of think about the case studies that you read about, and also your personal case study, and how important it is to know what role you play and what role other people are playing. Also, look beyond the issue. Oftentimes when people come to you with a problem, a complaint, a situation that they're in, a request that they have, there may be more to it than what's on the surface. So always be willing to look beyond just the issue at hand for what's really going on. And then don't kill a brainstormer. Your book gives some tips on how to avoid killing the brainstorming process. It talks about things like making sure you have fun. If you don't have fun when you're doing it, then no one is going to want to participate. Go off-site. Don't do it in your regular office space or workspace, because that just makes it feel a little bit more constrictive than when you're off-site. So there are many things that you can do to make sure that you don't kill the brainstorming session, because brainstorming can facilitate collaboration. So be sure to take a look at some of these takeaways, and we'll talk in just a second about how they can apply to your cases that you've been working on. Just a few thoughts about First Orion. I kind of told you guys about this in a previous video about the job that I have in the organization. Your book talks about the importance of space when it comes to collaboration, and I never really gave space that much thought until I came to work at First Orion and really observed the openness of our office space. In this picture, you see a big glass window. All of our meeting rooms, as well as a lot of the offices, have these huge glass windows and glass doors, and we can write on these. If you go into any of our office spaces or any of our conference rooms, they also have the paint on the walls that you can write on, and there are notes everywhere, on the glass, on the walls. That's how the collaboration takes place. And I was recently part of a process where we had to develop curriculum for an apprentice program that has just started, and we had to lay out, kind of a day-by-day, week-by-week curriculum. So there were 5 of us in the room, and we all have different roles. I'm the only non-technical person really there, but I understand how to develop curriculum. And so I was working with a lot of data scientists and data administrators and that type of role. But we came together and collaborated in this conference room space, and we had the walls covered with ideas. The brainstorming was such a fun experience, especially for me, not really having the technical background, to be able to experience that with that group of people and see that they're very open to ideas, even ones that I had, even though I'm not as technical as they are. We still went through about a 3-week process of just completely mapping it all out all over these walls. So the space allows for and encourages collaboration in that way. If you think about a conference room where people sit and they're just writing in their own notebooks and you really don't know what they're writing, or everyone's typing on their own computers, that's still collaboration, and that can definitely take place. But when you really see it, either up on a big screen or on the actual walls, it really does bring people together and put them on, the right page, the right path. So space does matter, and going forward, if you're in a leadership position, I think it's important to create a space that encourages collaboration rather than hinders it. Also, we all understand roles that we play in the collaboration process. I just gave you the example of the curriculum that we were building with this group of people, and we all play different roles for the organization and have different understandings, but we also know that we come together and we work for the common good of the group and the project. And so there were a couple of us in the room that are more task oriented and kind of kept everybody going and moving in the direction, and I was kind of the project manager for this, and so that really is a task role to say, okay, we need to meet these due dates, we need to have these deliverables, and they were all very open to that because that was my role. There are subject matter experts in the room that contributed to the discussion of the curriculum itself and what needed to take place each day. There's one guy in the room who loves to play devil's advocate, but not in a negative way, but just in a way of saying, hey, let's look at it from a different perspective. Have we thought about this? So, and I think I've said this before in some of these videos, it's been a long time since I've been in a situation where that true collaboration was taking place, and I felt it. I felt like everyone was heard and everyone was on the same page, and we all left there very satisfied with what we had created. And we also use a tool called the Berkman. It's kind of like a Myers-Briggs, a little bit more in depth, but it gives us some insight into how we communicate. And so we kind of get on the line of the power of language. What the Berkman tells us are people who prefer to have, for example, feedback given directly to them versus people who prefer the feedback to be given in maybe a little bit different way, maybe using that sandwich method of what have I done well, what I need to improve on, and what else am I doing well kind of feedback. But it lets people know how we prefer to communicate. And so we take this assessment and it tells them, hey, this is how I'm going to communicate if I'm being productive. These are what some of my needs are, and this is how I might behave under stress. And all of that points to language and how it shapes our understanding of, are we collaborating or are we trying to control? Oftentimes under stress, we try to control. And we kind of lose sight of collaboration. And so I know in our organization, we use the Berkman as a way to give some insight into what those behaviors may look like. But it all speaks towards using language that is either fostering a collaborative environment or control. And sometimes control is needed. We talked about that. You've got to have a balance. And so there are certainly times for it, but you can't use control to the point that it constricts or confines what really needs to happen in the organization. So this is just kind of some of my take on this last piece of collaboration and control. Let's take this and look at this next assignment here that we have coming up. So this is due on Friday, February 15th. And what I'd like for you to do is go back to the personal work example that you wrote about in week 2 and respond to these questions. So in looking at your own example, kind of like I'm looking at First Orion, look at your own example. Compare and contrast control and collaboration. What type of control is present? What impact does it have? What role does collaboration play? Were there any barriers to collaboration? And provide at least one example of control and collaboration in your example. Consider the case studies you analyzed in weeks 2 or 3. How are these case study situations similar to and different from your situation? And what can you learn from the case studies that would help improve your situation? And then finally, refer to pages 79 through 90 and look at boxes 3.1 and 3.2 and the statements that are given, and relate this to your experience in your own personal case study. And talk about a little bit about how facilitative and collaborative roles can help with problem solving. And I think this is going to kind of be a good way to wrap this up, and kind of use a personal example of something that you've actually experienced or that you're experiencing now. You can continue to use this personal case study as we go through the following chapters coming up, or you can change it if you want to. We'll be doing different things with it. But for this week, the only assignment due is to focus on this personal case study. Now also this week I will be posting the rest of the schedule for the next probably 3 to 4 weeks, which will take us up to about midterm. And just, I know some of you have struggled to get the book and whatnot, so I'm leaving all of these assignments open until midterm so that you can refer back to them and so that you can complete them if necessary. And then at midterm, the first 6 weeks or 7 weeks or so will close, and then we'll open up for the remainder of the semester. So that's kind of how that's going to work. If at any time you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I would be very happy to talk with you. And I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you.